talked to a lot of you, and I have learned from a lot of you. You let me know how I do here tonight. I'm excited to talk about education. I think it's an exciting topic for all of us, all of you professionals in the room. It's certainly something that I believe that every Vermonter cares deeply about. And I think there's nothing more fundamental in our society and for our state government to do than provide a high-quality education to all of our kids. It's about our economic competitiveness. We've got to compete with not only the other states, but certainly other countries around the world. It's about opportunities for our children, and if this country should be about one thing, if there was only one thing, it's about making sure every child, regardless of where they start in life, has a good opportunity. And it's in our school system that kids get opportunities. And it's about a functioning democracy. I mean, I think our forefathers understood the importance of education, and I believe our leaders over the years have understood how fundamental public education is to having a democracy with a well-informed citizenry. I've been involved in these issues for a number of years. I've been in the state senate in my second go-around, and I've been lieutenant governor. And I've always had an interest in kids and making sure kids can get ahead. I was there when Act 60 was passed and played a very strong role in formulating Act 60 because I recognized the system that we had was fundamentally flawed. And a lot of kids in low-income communities were not getting a good education. It simply was not a fair system. People can complain, and they do, about Act 60 and Act 68. And I'm sure there are things that we can do to make it work a little bit better. But let's understand where we are today compared to where we were before that legislation passed. I was part of putting income sensitivity in place in Act 60, and I think that has really made education much more affordable for our communities and for our middle-income people. And I was in Randolph with their elementary school a couple of weeks back for a meeting, and reminded me that Randolph was the first community in the state under Act 60 that actually was able to pass a bond issue to build a new school. Those kids were in 3 old schools prior to Act 60, and they were the first community that took advantage of the new formula and said, we're going to build a new school, and the community came together, and what an asset it is for that community. As many of you know, I lost an election a few years ago, and I didn't go home. I got elected to my local school board. So I served on the Mount Mansfield Union High School board with the superintendent over here, Jim Massingham, who's paying very close attention to what I say here tonight. So the questions about the problems that the next governor is going to face and what we're going to do about them. There's a lot we can talk about because there are a lot of issues in public education and higher education. I'm going to talk about 4 of them tonight, and I'm going to talk to you about what I will do as governor. The first thing, and I think is most serious, and is more of a political issue than an education issue. It's about the us versus them mentality that's developed between state government and our local school districts. Having served in a school where I've seen it from that side, and now I see it from this side, and I object to it. I think what we're seeing out of state government more and more often, I'm saying state government because it's not just the governor, and it's the legislature too. What we're seeing is an attitude that somehow local school boards aren't doing their jobs, and the voters aren't making smart decisions. And that somehow we've got to say, you guys are doing a bad job, and you've got to do better, and here's what we're going to tell you to do. And all the discussion of caps came out of that. And I think the milestone in this discussion and sort of that downward spiral of the relationship between state government and our local schools was the 2-vote process, the think again process, where the legislature is trying to put a cap on school spending. And I'm really proud of my vote then. I was one of 4 in the state senate, just 4 of us who voted no. And I feel today that that was the right thing to do. That was an antagonistic thing to do rather than forming a partnership. When we talk reforms nationally and in the state, reforms usually start with the sort of assumption that folks' education is failing and can't succeed. So we talk about charters, we talk about vouchers, we talk about market forces and giving people free choices and all of that. And instead, we need to be focused on what we can do to improve the quality of public education for every child in the state of Vermont and stay focused on that. Solution. First thing I do as governor is change the conversation, okay, and change the tone. State government, with me as governor, will be a partner with our local school districts. Okay, I'm going to be a cheerleader for public education. I'm going to talk about what's good in our schools. the good job that we're doing. I went to a white coat ceremony at the UVM Medical School a year ago, and there were 5 students in that one class from Mount Mansfield Union High School. Made me feel real proud to have been part of that school district. Kids are doing well in the state, and we ought to celebrate that. Second issue I want to talk about is the cost. The cost is certainly a concern to people. It's K-12 and it's higher education. There's a public perception, partly based on reality, partly based on the simple fact that education is expensive. Okay, it's labor intensive. We've got healthcare costs, energy costs, technology costs, increasing numbers of kids with behavioral and emotional problems who are often difficult to deal with. You have mental health services that Susan just talked about. But I believe school boards and administrators are responding to that. We are seeing real serious efforts to cut back on spending. More can be done. Again, I believe that state government can be a partner in helping school districts deal with the costs. Local control is important, and I support local control. But we don't get economies of scale, and we don't get efficiencies with local control. Consolidation is often mentioned as a solution. I don't think consolidation is going to save that much. I think it's a panacea. I think it's something people talk about because it seems like an easy answer. But there are things that we could do to help school districts work together and save on administrative costs in business operations, cafeteria operations, transportation, curriculum, professional development, all those sorts of things we could work together on. The third issue, which I think is really tough to deal with, is the issue of poverty. Okay, I co-chair the Child Poverty Council, and let me tell you, I've seen it, and I think you have all seen it real close. The fact of the matter is that a child starting kindergarten today, if he or she is coming out of poverty, is starting out behind. And the test scores show that, and those kids will often get farther behind as school goes along. And they're more likely not to graduate, and they're more likely to become statistics. And that is wrong, and I think there's something that we can do about it. We start by making sure every child in the state of Vermont has access to good pre-K education and nurturing. Okay, it's not just the education part, it's making sure that at birth and in infancy, children are having access to adequate nutrition and adequate nurturing. If we want to make a difference in the quality of K-12 education in the state, let's start with pre-K and make that work. As governor, what I want to do is really get our education department to work together with our Agency of Human Services. Schools are a reflection of the communities they are in, and schools cannot solve the social problems working alone. There needs to be a partnership with the state and with communities. A number of years ago, when the state first started doing standardized testing, we identified 39 schools in the state that were in need of assistance. 31 of them were in low-income communities. The solution was send out curriculum advisors because something's going wrong in these schools and the teachers aren't doing a good job. My solution is to say, look at the quality of education, but look at what's going on in the communities. Let's find ways to help the communities help the schools do a better job, and don't leave the schools alone to try to fix these social problems. We need to take ownership of those issues. And finally, the fourth issue that I think needs to be addressed is the simple fact that today a high school diploma is not adequate. And we're losing a lot of kids before they even get to the point where they may or may not get that high school diploma. We need to understand that higher education is important, and higher education needs to be available to every person who wants it. It's increasingly expensive. Again, we have a cost problem. Again, higher education is labor intensive as well, and student debt is increasing. I wish I had an easy solution on that one, folks. We've been talking about that for a long, long time in the state. The fact that Vermont ranks 50th in state support. That's a tough issue. We're going to need a stronger economy. I can't give you an easy answer to that except to say we need to focus on it, and we need to find the resources to be able to do that, and then find better ways of coordinating all our education with adult education, workforce training, and our technical education. Finally, let me say that we need, as a society, need to be more enthusiastic about education. Okay, at the national level, at the state level, we need to embrace education, the importance of education, and innovation, and research and development. We are going to lose to China and other countries if we don't increase public support for education in the state.